Star Trek. Nemesis had a moment even more disturbing than Spock's mind meld in Star Trek VI. When fans debate the darker moments in Star Trek history, two scenes inevitably rise to the surface. The first is Spock's shocking forced mind meld on LT. Valerie's in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. In that moment, the legendary Vulcan cast aside his principles and used his mental abilities as an interrogation weapon. It was raw, invasive, and unsettling, and even decades later, many fans still struggle with the choice to portray Spock in such a morally compromised light. But Star Trek, Nemesis, the final film of the Next Generation crew, quietly included a moment that in many ways is even more disturbing. It wasn't as infamous as Spock's mind meld, nor was it framed as a dramatic betrayal of character. Instead, it played out as part of the plot, almost routine, which only makes it more chilling in retrospect. The moment in question? Shinzen's psychic assault on Counselor Deanna Troi. Unlike Spock's scene, which came out of desperation in a political thriller, Shinzen's violation of Troy's mind was an act of cruelty, domination, and violation that carried undertones far more personal and traumatizing than anything Spock had done. Looking back, it reveals how Nemesis pushed Star Trek into uncomfortable territory, and how that moment ended up being one of the darkest in the franchise. Revisiting Spock's mind meld in Star Trek VI. To understand why Nemesis went further, we need to recall why Spock's forced mind meld was so shocking in the first place. The Undiscovered Country was a story about trust, diplomacy, and prejudice at the twilight of the Cold War allegory that defined much of Star Trek's politics. Spock, long seen as the paragon of Vulcan discipline and morality, takes desperate measures when he and Captain Kirk uncover a conspiracy designed to sabotage peace with the Klingons. When Valerie's, Spock's protege, refuses to reveal the names of her co-conspirators, he presses his fingers against her face and rips the information from her mind without her consent. The scene is jarring because it undermines the very ideals Spock stood for. His calm demeanor makes the act even more disturbing. He doesn't scream or rage, he simply takes what he wants, ignoring the agony etched across Valeris's face. For many fans, it was akin to watching a trusted mentor break his own sacred vows, a glimpse at how even the most principled individuals can justify atrocity in the name of necessity. But as invasive and unsettling as it was, Spock's actions came from a place of dire urgency. His world teetered on the brink of war. Shinzen, on the other hand, wielded psychic power for something much darker. Shinzen's violation of Deanna Troi. In Nemesis, Shinzen is introduced as a clone of Jean-Luc Picard, created by the Romulans as part of a failed experiment. Unlike Spock, Shinzen has no moral compass. He is a creature born from manipulation and resentment, desperate to prove himself against his genetic template. His plan to destroy Earth with a Thalaran weapon provides the central conflict of the film, but his interactions with Counselor Deanna Troi provide one of its most unsettling subplots. At first, the assaults occur indirectly. Troi experiences psychic intrusions during her sleep, with Shinzen using his Viceroy's telepathic abilities to invade her mind. These aren't interrogations or tactical maneuvers. They are personal violations. He speaks to her as though he owns her, leering at her psyche as if testing how deeply he can burrow into her vulnerabilities. The assaults escalate in the middle of the film when Troi is attacked during her most intimate and personal space, her romantic life with Riker. During a love scene, Shinzen hijacks her mind, replacing Riker's presence with his own, forcing Troi into a horrifying psychological violation. Though Nemesis doesn't linger graphically, the implication is unmistakable. Shinzen weaponizes his power for sexual assault by proxy. This moment goes beyond Spock's act of desperation. It's not about extracting secrets or serving the greater good. It's sadism. It's domination. It's a violation that leaves Troi shaken and powerless, a deeply disturbing turn for a character who has often been unfairly underwritten in TNG, but whose strength and resilience are tested here in devastating fashion. Why Shinzen's psychic assault is more disturbing than Spock's mind meld. There are three major reasons this moment is even more disturbing than Spock's infamous scene in Star Trek VI. 1. Intent matters. Spock mind melded with Valerie's because he believed it was the only way to save countless lives. That doesn't absolve the action, but it frames it in a desperate context. Shinzen, however, had no necessity. His assault on Troy was not about war, peace, or strategy. It was about exerting power. It was personal, cruel, and utterly unnecessary. That makes it far darker. 2. The violation of intimacy. Troy's psychic attack occurs during a deeply vulnerable moment of intimacy with Riker. Shinzen not only violates her mind, but also desecrates the sanctity of her marriage. The psychological damage here is profound. It's not just Troy who suffers, but also her bond with Riker, as their most personal space is corrupted by an enemy's intrusion. Star Trek had explored telepathy many times before, but rarely with this level of violation. 3. The lingering trauma. Valeris's betrayal and mind meld ends quickly, and her role in the conspiracy is revealed. The act is shocking, but it passes. In contrast, Troy is haunted throughout Nemesis by Shinzen's attacks. She feels violated, humiliated, and vulnerable in a way that lingers across the film. Even when she ultimately turns the tables, using the psychic connection to locate Shinzen's ship in the final battle, the trauma of what she endured is not undone. Star Trek's uncomfortable relationship with psychic power. Part of why this moment resonates so uncomfortably is because Star Trek has always been fascinated with psychic abilities, but has rarely dealt with their darker implications head-on. Vulcan mind melds, betazoid empathy, telepaths of various alien races. These abilities are often portrayed as gifts, tools of connection or enlightenment. But what Nemesis forces us to consider is the dark mirror of that gift. If someone can access your innermost thoughts, your emotions, and even your intimate experiences, what happens when that power is abused? Troy's psychic assault exposes the vulnerability at the core of every telepathic ability in Star Trek. It makes viewers question whether these powers are safe or ethical at all. In many ways, Shinzen's actions are the logical extreme of what Spock did. If Spock could justify violating someone's mind for the greater good, Shinzen could justify it for selfish cruelty. Both are invasions, but only one stems from moral collapse rather than moral compromise. How the scene affects Troy as a character. For much of the Next Generation, Troy was unfairly sidelined. She was often reduced to saying, "I sense hostility," during tense scenes, or framed as the emotional foil rather than a fully fleshed-out officer. Nemesis gives her one of her most harrowing challenges, forcing her to endure an attack that strips away her autonomy and agency. But the film also gives her a rare moment of empowerment. During the climactic battle, Troy uses the very link Shinzen exploited to track the scimitar's position in the Romulan darkness. It's a brilliant reversal, turning her trauma into a weapon and reclaiming the part of herself Shinzen sought to dominate. It doesn't erase the violation, but it gives Troy a victory that feels earned. In doing so, Nemesis elevates Troy beyond the role of empath and love interest, granting her an integral role in the survival of the Enterprise crew. Ironically, her most disturbing violation becomes